6 years ago, WorkSafe BC decided that our employees couldn't get out of their trucks and fix something on the highway if the speed limit was over 70K. And so that meant on the freeways, if there was a animal carcass or a piece of muffler from a car going by, a hazard in the middle of the road, we couldn't get out and move it. And that was wrong. And so because they knew, WorkSafe BC, that we had to do that because it was a safety issue, they kind of turned a blind eye on. But the solution was then to get involved with the slow down, move over legislation, which meant everybody had to go at 70K. Therefore, the new speed limit was 70K, and our guys could get out and move it. Yeah, there was other issues to it. It was just dumb that the public was expected to look at a flashing vehicle in the distance and decide whether it was one they had to slow down and move over for or not. So we said, it should be everybody, including our workers and the Ministry of Transportation workers. They too, anybody working on the side of the road, it should be that people slow down, respect the job they're doing, and help make them safer.
Well, the initial legislation contemplated the highway workers included, and there was an error, and they left it out. Unfortunately, once the legislation was enacted and they moved, then they moved the regulation part to enforcement or putting it into place. They didn't include the highway workers, and we had several iterations of highway ministers that moved on through the system, and it was the current highway minister Stone that committed to actually correct the error that was made during the initial contemplation of the legislation. A lot of our workers, of course, work on the highway system, directly engaged in traffic, and one of the important items for us is to get them home in the same condition that they arrive at work at. And when they're working at highway speeds, working on the highway on either closed lanes or inactive traffic, they have to be protected. So the slow down, move over allows that protection for those workers. We are able to ensure that the traffic respects the work site and that the workers aren't injured during carrying out those duties that are actually improving the safety of the traveling public.
We were delighted that the ministry made the announcement that Cabinet had accepted including road builders and ministry staff trucks with flashing lights in the slow down, move over legislation or regulations, I guess, at this point. And it'll just mean safer roads and safer for the traveling public too, because if they get the idea that they're supposed to slow down and move over, then they perhaps will, and there'll be less accidents and less serious accidents.
We're pleased that we're able to deliver to the workers a safe work environment, which is really our key function. And then for the other the other travelers on the highway system, we're able to help in educating them on what is proper to do and getting them to move over during a work site that's active on the highway.
When the slow down, move over regulation was brought in, it was brought in with the best of intentions. It was intended to have motorists slow down when certain types of vehicles were obviously on the sides of the road doing work. It initially applied primarily to emergency vehicles and conservation officers and so forth. It was a good start when the regulation first came out, but it wasn't good enough. And certainly the road builders, one of their most prominent asks of government consistently since that regulation was brought in was this regulation should apply to everyone who works on the sides of our highways. So we looked at that, and purely from the perspective of the safety of workers, all workers, whether you're in an emergency vehicle or whether you're a road contractor, whether you're actually an employee of the Ministry of Transportation, a postal worker, it really doesn't matter. Your safety is paramount. So very, very pleased to have recommended to Cabinet and have received to Cabinet approval just this week to extend the regulation and actually simplify it. So it now applies not to a specific and discrete list of workers, but it now applies to all vehicles that have flashing red, blue, or yellow lights on their vehicles. So what this does is it extends the regulation to the types of workers like maintenance crews and road contractors to ensure that the public slows down when they see these types of vehicles on the sides of the road as well. I've been the minister for 18 months, and I remember back to my very first meeting with Jack Davison of the Road Builders, probably a week, maybe 2 weeks into my role as minister, and he made it very clear to me that the number one ask of the road builders at that time, and consistently since that time, has been to extend the regulation to apply to all vehicles with flashing lights, so as to capture, his members into the spirit and the intent of that regulation. Things don't always move as quickly as you would like in government. I certainly have learned that loud and clear coming out of the private sector myself. But I resolved to work with Jack and the road builders on this, and while it's taken a little bit of time, I'm very proud that we were finally able to deliver this for not just the road builders, but again for all workers whose safety is paramount when they're conducting their work on the sides of our highways and our roads.